Hey, I guess we're on the air of this broadcast that I had to start early thinking Jimmy was just certainly available, and he's not. So, welcome into Talking Tuscaloosa. I'll have a more formal intro here in just a few minutes. You can hear the sounds of weed eaters going off in the background, and that's always cool for a podcast. Nothing better. Nothing says this is a professional podcast like lawn maintenance being handled in the background. Luke Robinson here joining you, waiting anxiously and nervously for Jimmy Stein as he sent me a text and said, "Am I ready?" I said, "Give me a minute." That's usually a death sentence for Jimmy, as somebody will call saying they've decided they do, in fact, want to go through a lengthy and painful and time consuming divorce, thus using up all of his allotted precious minutes. Anywho, as Jimmy still hadn't joined us, it is still Luke Robinson here. And yeah, I'm pretty depressed. I mean, Auburn making the Final Four has really just kind of ruined 2019. Where the hell does 2019 go from here? Alabama gets blowed out in front of me in a very expensive San Francisco Bay Area in a really pretty shitty venue. I mean, Levi Stadium was okay itself, but the atmosphere sucked. And then Alabama proceeds to get the hell beaten out of them. I found out the trip later cost me $1,500 more than I thought it was going to. And now Auburn's going to the Final Four, place Alabama's never been. So, yeah. How's your freaking 2019 going? Mine sucks. But, you know, in all seriousness, congratulations to Auburn, because I got to say, I'm mad jealous right now. There's no other way to say it. If you're an Alabama fan, first of all, if you're an Alabama fan, you're rooting for Auburn. I mean, just come on, man. You can't root for them. I mean, you can be like me, and you can be like, okay, this is a pretty cool accomplishment, as long as y'all don't screw it up by coming up with some funky ass hashtag or wearing a bunch of paraphernalia, basketball themed crap that y'all have never worn before. Don't screw it up that way. I mean, if Alabama happens to win the softball national championship, I ain't wearing a bunch of softball shit. I mean, God bless those girls. I love them. They do a great job, but I'm not wearing a bunch of softball championships 2019. Shit ain't happening. And that's the way you should approach this. Like, be proud and have some couth. I'm not even sure what the hell couth is. I know you're not supposed to be uncouth. I know that sucks. So I'm assuming the opposite of uncouth is regular couth. And, but I know y'all are going to screw this up. Look, back in the day when I used to drive to Birmingham from Ellick City all the time to play in basketball leagues, I wasn't super good myself or anything, but I played with some guys that were really good, and they never admitted they were Auburn fans, Auburn basketball fans at least. I mean, when football season came around, if we happened to be in a league, we would talk football. Nobody ever talked about Auburn basketball. And now it seems like every Auburn fan I know is acting as if they have been reading all these books on Bobby Knight and John Wooden, Gene Cady, random other coaches that basketball fans know, that Rolly Massimino, they're going back and getting the old Sports Illustrateds with Villanova players on the cover from the mid-'80s and shit like that. Look, y'all are pretty damn good. Bruce Pearl's done a damn good job. And I have no problem saying I'm not a huge fan of his simply because he's at Auburn. He's a little sweaty. He's definitely a showman, and I don't mean that in necessarily the best way, but he's also a damn good coach. In fact, you could make the argument he might be the best X's and O's coach in the country. And that's why Auburn is playing for the national championship, in essence. And in fact, I think making the Final Four is just as good as playing for the national championship. But nobody ever says, well, George Mason, they didn't make the championship game, so they kind of suck. No, they talk about George Mason made the Final Four. And that's all you got to do. If you make the Final Four, you're in a very exclusive club. Auburn is now in that club, and Alabama is not. That pisses me off. We need to change that. And I'm hoping that Nate Oates is the guy to do that. And the class he's assembling is the foundation to make that happen. But it does piss me off that Alabama has never been to a Final Four, even by accident. You know, there are a lot of teams that just get in there by accident. Auburn didn't do it that way. Auburn earned their way in. And Jimmy now is finally joining me.
Hey.
Jimmy, I took a chance. Can you hear me?
I hear you, and you've already started.
Got your goddamn volume off again.
Oh,
can you hear me, Jimmy? Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you, and I don't know why. Are you muted? Yes.
No, can you hear me now?
Yes, you were muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well then you're hearing me just now. Fine. Okay, we're good now.
I know, but you first of all, I've gone off on a rather spectacular rant about all types of nothingness.
Well, you're upset about Auburn.
First of all, yeah, I was. I started the podcast early thinking, because you're the one that texted me and said, "Are you ready?" So I packed my shit up, drove home, and like, I got to get here. Jimmy's already ready. I can't blow this moment. This is like if your wife is ovulating and says, "Get home now," you got to get home now. Or she'd be like, "The moment's passed."
That was like the worst analogy ever.
By the way, dude,
that was the worst.
Is that how ovulation works? Is it like get home now and you've got 5 minutes, and if the shit doesn't work, the ovulation's over? I don't know.
I wouldn't know. I'm just a Twitter guy. I'm just king of the nerds. I wouldn't know.
You would think I would know. I've got 4 kids. I might have.
You should know.
Shit, if I know.
Hell if I know. I got zero. I got 0 kids.
Okay, so I was talking about. Well, let me just go ahead and formally introduce this podcast. Lawrence, start it from the beginning. Really do keep all that shit in there. I had some very
good. I look forward to hearing.
But hey again, everybody, and welcome into Talking Tuscaloosa. Luke Robinson, along with Jimmy Stein. As always, Jimmy,
unmuted.
How are you today?
Unmuted. I had to
unmuted.
I had to take a quick trip to the Coke store. Yep, Coke.
Are you shitting me? That's why you're late?
It was downstairs. When I say down, the Coke store is literally down a flight of stairs.
You texted me and said, "Are you ready?"
And then you said,
"This is the perfect time."
I thought I could get to the Coke store and back before you're like, "Are you ready?" And then I walked in. I'm like, "Oh shit, Luke was ready 60 seconds ago."
Oh god!
And then it takes a while to go to Google, do the thing, click here, click there, and then boom, I join you. And
I know all this. I wish I liked you so I could unfriend you. But anywho, yeah, we do need to start with that because I have no problem saying.
What were you ranting about?
Well, I was ranting about Auburn's going to the Final Four, and we've never been. And, look, congratulations to them. And they did earn it. They didn't back their way into this thing. They beat
certainly did.
3 true blue bloods. And now you could say they got lucky in the sense of a 86% free throw shooter missed 2 of 3 to begin with in the New Mexico State game. But having said that, they beat Kansas badly. They beat North Carolina badly, and they ended up taking care of Kentucky minus their best player. I mean, all you can say is, hey, look, I'm not a big Bruce Pearl fan simply because he's the coach at Auburn. And I do think he's a bit – I mean, he seems a bit disingenuous to me, the crying and I'm just need to go hug that guy. I mean, give me a break. I mean, let's not go nuts. But he is maybe the best X's and O coach in the country. And so I'm going to give him some credit.
That was strong. Best, one of the best X's and O coaches. I mean, I don't disagree. He's a very, very good basketball coach, no doubt. I don't like him at all for any number of reasons. I don't care for him, but is he a great coach? Yeah, he's great. And if he's definitely proved it now. What a great run. And what I would say is I had Auburn losing to New Mexico State in the first round in my bracket. I had them losing to New Mexico State. And as silly as that sounds today, with Auburn in the Final Four, I was almost right. I was almost
their closest game.
Yeah, I mean, I was almost right. Heck, I had New Mexico State going to the Sweet 16. And as silly as that sounds, based on Auburn's run, if New Mexico State had won that game, heck, maybe New Mexico State's right where Auburn is. I don't know. They're a good ball club.
And going completely off the rails here for a second, this is why that Elite Eight is why I don't like double-digit teams in the Elite Eight, double-digit seeded teams. That Elite Eight was one of the best 4-game stretches that you will see because it was all very good teams.
It was all good teams. Yeah, you're right. Those were
half-ass 12-seeded butthole teams.
Right, and the way the games played out, wow. I mean, 4 fantastic college basketball games. That was very exciting. Every one of them.
I want, everybody's talking about the Blue Bloods now and the lack of the Blue Bloods in the Final Four, which is true. But the fact that the Elite Eight was filled with Blue Bloods made it better, and I like that a lot. Now, I would have much rather. I mean, not just put my hatred for all things Auburn aside for a minute. I would have much rather the Final Four have been Duke, Kentucky, I guess Virginia. Since that, I mean, if I'm just taking Elite Eight teams, Virginia and I guess Gonzaga. That Gonzaga, Texas Tech didn't move the meter much for me either. But I guess Gonzaga. Although I'll say this, Texas Tech was in the Elite Eight last year, and they make it this year, and that guy can coach his little ass off.
He can. What a great program. And doing it, I'm assuming there's no way for me to keep up with this. I assume Gonzaga has this remarkable consistency in their program, despite not exactly signing classes filled with 5-stars. I think Gonzaga probably recruits similar to mid-majors, even though their results are very blue-bloodish.
Yeah, but if you look at the recruiting rankings, they're up there this year at least. I don't know about years past. This year,
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I would hope so. I would hope they've earned a loftier, position with prospects due to their year-to-year success. By the way, this started so fast. I could be interrupted for phone calls, and if so, we'll just pretend like it's funny.
I like. You know what? That's what we could do. It like an April Fool's joke. We could say, why don't you call up? So, hey, everybody, I have an announcement to make. Jimmy Stein has a 9-inch penis. April Fool, it's 10 inches.
Well, I was going to say, as it's April Fools, these people calling to get their lawyer on the phone and say, oh, no, you got a podcaster. You just thought he was a lawyer.
Yeah, that's what you ought to do. Say, I'm going to put you on hold and on speakerphone, but just listen to this and see if you still want me when this podcast is over.
That's a great way for me to lose money and what little respect I have left.
So, how does Auburn's making the Final Four make you feel?
I am going to be the only person in the state of Alabama with this opinion, although it was a very popular Twitter subject yesterday about how we should feel about this. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not happy for Auburn because I don't like Auburn. I don't like Bruce Pearl at all. I would be happy for Auburn and would root for Auburn if someone could show me empirically how this helps Alabama, but I don't see how it does. I don't see how it does. You think Auburn being in the Final Four helps Alabama?
Okay. Yes. Now, here's the catch-22 about it. If you told me beforehand, if somebody came to me and said, Luke, Auburn's making it to the Final Four will help Alabama, and I'll only tell you how after it happens, but they've got to get there. Are you for that? I would say unequivocally, no. I don't give a shit. I don't want them there. Now that it's already happened and they're there, there's no doubt in my mind this is going to set off a chain of events that is going to make not only Alabama a much better basketball program that puts a lot more emphasis on basketball, but probably the rest of the SEC, because I think most of the SEC teams can say, okay, LSU, we get it. You got some homegrown talent, you've got some resources, and you apparently have a coach that cheats pretty well. So you're going to have guys that occasionally get to the Final Four, like in, I guess, 06 and, in the 80s. You're going to have some guys, you're going to get to the Final Four occasionally. Kentucky, hey, man, you do your thing. Florida, you were on a roll like nobody's ever seen, and you're going to be a Final Four. We can even live with South Carolina just sort of flailing and flopping their way into a Final Four, even though we know they weren't one of the best 4 teams in the country. When Auburn's doing it, you can bet your sweet ass that Alabama and Texas A&M and some other schools like a Tennessee, for instance, that have never been to a Final Four are going to say, wait a damn minute. We are going to get there too now. We have to. We have no choice. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to happen with Alabama, A&M, and Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 1 or 2 of those schools make the Final Four within the next 10 years. And it's going to be not solely based on the fact that Auburn made it, but it's going to be a factor in the terms of people are going to say, okay, we've heard all the reasons we haven't been able to make it, and we've kind of lived with that because football-wise, we understand there's a football league, but now that Auburn's doing it and they have fewer resources than we have, yeah, we're going to do that shit too.
Well, I mean, great points. I would great points, and you might be right. You might exactly be right. But just one question: how did Florida winning back-to-back national titles? I'm assuming Florida's biggest rivals are Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, in the East. I'm just saying that Florida winning back-to-back national titles didn't seem to elevate Georgia. Didn't seem to elevate Tennessee. I might be wrong about that.
I disagree on Tennessee when Bruce Pearl was there. Now Tennessee won the league 3 straight
was
years.
That after? Yeah, I guess that was after Florida, was it?
No,
it might be.
I want to say that was right before Florida. So really, and not only that, Florida kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Billy Donovan. I mean, and see, the other thing is everybody, if Florida wins a national championship in blank sport, you will go, well, they do have every single resource imaginable at their fingertips. So I get it. But if Auburn wins a national championship,
I agree with you that Auburn is the proof.
What the hell?
Auburn is the proof that anybody in the league can get there if they have the right coach and the right players, and get a little fortunate. Here's one thing, and not that it certainly doesn't diminish what Auburn has done, but there was a point this season, now it only lasted for a week or so, but there was a point this season where Alabama's team was every bit as accomplished as Auburn's.
I agree, and
then their season went one direction and Alabama's went completely in the toilet from there.
And you could say, you know what you could say, Jimmy? You could say that the direction changed when they played each other in Tuscaloosa. If Alabama goes on to win that game, Alabama's not making the Final Four with his coaching staff. I'm just saying Alabama gets into the tournament, and Auburn probably doesn't start to go on a run that leads them to. So it was a series of steps where Auburn gets in the good side of the SEC tournament bracket, and then LSU is in the middle of all its bullshit, and they end up playing a Florida team that matches up very well with Auburn, and then a foul doesn't get called at the end of that game, which should have been called. It just doesn't. Shit happens. And then Auburn gets to play a Tennessee team that was emotionally depleted, and they use all this as a motivational trampoline to jump way up. And meanwhile, when Alabama blew a 12-point lead to Auburn in Tuscaloosa, it felt like we lost 10 games in one night.
Well, the good news and all of this is the good news, and that Alabama made changes.
True.
I think Alabama's trying to improve themselves. I get frustrated when I read Alabama doesn't care about basketball. We sure spend a hell of a lot of money for a program that doesn't care about basketball. I think it's just hard to find the right guy, and it's hard to win. It's hard to win consistently in this league. And one of my soapbox issues is this. I'm a huge Nate Oates fan right now. He's my favorite basketball coach that ever lived as of right now. That's the way I feel about him today. Favorite coach that ever lived. Now, and Avery Johnson needed to be fired. And what I'm about to say is not a defense of Avery and a shot at Nate. What I'm trying to do is get people to be just a bit realistic. And that's this. We finished per the NCAA selection committee. We finished as the first team out or the second team out.
Right.
We were the first or second. We missed it realistically by one game. Had we beaten Auburn, LSU, Florida, Texas A&M once, if we just win LSU, Georgia State, if we'd have win one of those home games, we would have been in the NCAA basketball tournament. So next year, assuming Kyra comes back, assuming we have some decent success here in this late signing period, if we win 20 games next season and get in the tournament, what's going to drive me nuts is the Nate Oates groupies, of which I'm one, by the way, the Nate Oates groupies that are like thinking it was a miraculous turnaround, the miraculous turnaround, when in fact all we did was basically win one more game than we won the year before.
Yeah,
So,
but Jimmy,
but
you are downplaying you're downplaying what. Look, I'm not going. I do love Nate Oates just like you do, and just like I love all new coaches that come in. But I particularly like him because he's in a sport I love. But you're downplaying. It's sort of like saying, well, shouldn't Nick Saban give some credit to Mike Shula for recruiting Javier Arenas? Yeah, but Javi wasn't doing a lot of Javi things under Mike Shula. He was doing
that's
those
not
things.
my point. I don't think my point is.
My point is, if next year we win 20-something games with, let's say, a similar schedule, and let's say the league is the same strength it was, I'm going to say, hell yeah, Nate Oates kicked more ass. Because it's not only did we win more games, the energy around – for all of the blustery hashtags of Avery Johnson's beginnings, he was boring as a mofo when it came to what he put on the court. I mean, afterwards, he might say, this is just the beginning or buckle up or whatever the hell he said, and God bless him. But it was in the game that finally people said, your actions are speaking louder than your words. And I think Nate Oates is going to be the opposite. I think he's going to have some run and gun, some fun shit in there, some people shooting threes who should shoot threes, that kind of stuff.
Right. No, my point isn't, well, when we make the NCAA tournament, we should all turn around and thank Avery for the program that he bestowed upon Nate. What I mean is going from 18 wins to 20 wins isn't a miraculous leap. What I mean is it's realistic. See, in year one, I would tell anybody, if you had to fire the coach and then you bring somebody in year one and they're making a huge transition, my first rule of thumb is to say, well, don't expect to win many games. Not year one. Year two is the real gauge. What I'm saying is this team could win next year. This team can win next year, assuming Kyra comes back. Because if Kyra's gone, I do see it as a little bit more of a rebuilding job. I'm just saying we can win games next season, maybe even enough to get in the NCAA tournament, and we shouldn't feel like it's miraculous if we did. So that's my point. I'm not trying to give Avery any credit. I think Avery did not do a good job at all in year four, and we had to make the change. There's no question we had to make that change, and we're better for it. I'm excited about Nate. So I'm not trying to give Avery credit. I'm just saying that next year is not going to be a typical first year transition. I think Nate Oates is inheriting a team capable of making the NCAA tournament. And while I will be the first to promote Nate as SEC Coach of the Year if we do make the NCAA tournament, I'm just saying I just get this impression from our fans that next year, if we make the NCAA tournament, we will be reading words like miraculous and things like that as if we just came off a season in which we were 4-14 in the SEC, and that's crazy. Nate can win in year one. To some extent, he should win in year one. And again, I'm basing all this on assuming that that Kyra comes back, because that's the real key here.
Yeah,
and I believe he will.
Well, here's the other thing, though. I'll say, and I kept saying if the schedule is the same in strength, but the schedule is going to be pretty damn daunting. We've got, I know in the battle for Atlantis, we're going to have North Carolina. Who else is in that damn thing? Is it Gonzaga's in there?
As a matter of fact, I'm hearing that we might play North Carolina or Gonzaga in week one. Is that true?
Oof.
I mean, game one is going to be Carolina or Gonzaga. So, the schedule is going to be tough, no doubt. I do think possibly the league won't be quite as good. I could be wrong about that, and we'll see how it comes out. And it's just impossible to know right now until we see all the underclassmen that come out. There's no way to know that until we know the answer to that. But I think Auburn is clearly not going to be what they are. They'll take a step back. And I think Ole Miss did have a bunch of seniors as well. LSU is about to be a mess with what they've got going on down there. So now some other teams in the SEC might be better than they were, this past year. That can happen because of the depth of talent league and the coaches, but I'm just saying, I don't know that the league will be quite as daunting next season. And that would help out Nate, but we'll see. We won't know that until we know it.
Yeah. But so what are your overall impressions so far of Nate Oates then?
Extremely positive. I believe him. And by that, I mean, if I believe him, I think the kids are. When Nate says I'm going to change the culture, when Nate says I'm going to institute these 3 core values, when Nate says we're going to play fast and we're going to play to my system and my system works, I believe him. He delivers it in a way that makes it very believable. And I believe he is going to do all these things that he says he's doing. So I'm excited. I think Greg Byrne handled the search fantastic. One of the things I like, and since Nate was sort of a surprise when all of a sudden it's just announced that our new coach was Nate Oates, I realized how smart Greg Byrne was to do that. If we knew about 3 days in advance that Nate Oates was one of the top guys, if we knew that, we'd probably spent 3 days dissecting reasons to why he wasn't going to be a great hire. But we all found out, at the same time, minute number 1, who the head coach was going to be. So that was like a cool way to handle it. I think we all got excited about Nate instead of dissecting him like we do with the other candidates. So I like the system. I like the guy. I think he's credible and believable. I like that he's never been in trouble. I like the fact that he has such a rapport with high school kids, because in the end, it's all about recruiting, and that's all it's about and all it ever will be. And while the things that made me nervous about him, like for instance, he's unproven as a recruiter at this level, I still believe that he has the makeup of being outstanding in that area simply because of his long track record of being successful in high school. So I couldn't be more excited. I give Greg Byrne an A+. I'm very excited about having Nate here, and I'm optimistic that that he's going to prove to be a good coach. And I think everything he'll do at Alabama will just prove he's a good coach. Now, will it be good enough? It's a tough job. I know. You know why I know this is a tough job? For as much as we beat up on Avery, Avery's not an idiot. Avery was an NBA Coach of the Year. Avery knows basketball. He was an all-star point guard in the NBA for years, and he's got an infectious personality. Avery's not an idiot. Anthony Grant was hugely qualified for this job. It had won at VCU, is sort of winning now at Dayton. While it didn't work out for Anthony at Alabama, we had to make a change. Anthony Grant has also proven to be a good basketball coach. Mark Godfrey, no doubt, is a good basketball coach. So Alabama has proven to be a tough job. It's tough to win big there. Maybe Nate's different than these other guys. Maybe he's just different enough to be great. And we're due for a great coach. So I'm excited for those reasons.
Yeah. And then you said something earlier. You said it's not like Alabama doesn't care about basketball. And see, we live in such a world of absolutes that everybody's like, you either care about something or you don't care. And meaning when they say you care, you're like passionate about it. I think Alabama as a university has cared about basketball, but it's sort of like, it's like we're dating a girl we're not really into, but we're into enough. We're like, okay, we don't want to be without you. And we'll hold on to you until something better comes along, like football. Because the Coleman Coliseum stuff, to me, I mean, that place, I think any Alabama fan, and somebody can give me all the reasons that we didn't tear it down and we didn't do something new. The experiment at Auburn, building a new facility with 9,000 people, has worked beautifully for them and is exactly what we needed to do. And instead, we have kept an antiquated facility that I'm sure has all the good bones and all the other crap people love to throw out there. But I would argue it might be the least intimidating atmosphere in the league. I mean, when we go there, and this is partially on fans too, like when I say we kind of care, we care just enough. We care to show up and bitch. Like the ones that seem to have the best seats are all the guys wearing sweater vests and khakis with their legs and arms crossed. Man, somebody show some actual fervor in that place. I mean, we got the students wherever the hell they're sitting. We can't find them usually. We've got a couple of guys out there. Who's that? At Fluffopotamus? What's his Cameron? Is Cameron Luke?
Cameron Luke Ratliff. Cameron Luke Ratliff.
Yeah, that guy gets after it. I appreciate that guy. And I that's awesome. We need more of hymns. And can I make hymns plural?
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, hey, there's Snoop Dogg advertises for it. Why can't I? Anywho, but we need more excitement in there, and that's on the fans. But that's a podcast for another day. I think Alabama's always cared just enough about basketball to where it seemed like we really cared. Well, now I think with Greg Byrne there, I think we're about to really start giving a shit. And I think that Auburn's making it to the Final Four is going to move that whatever building process we had to really, if we were on floor 6 and really giving a shit is on floor 10, we're about to ramp up production and be on floor 8 or floor 9 by the end of the summer. I don't know what that means, but we're going to do some shit that's different than what we've been doing. And we're about to step our game up basketball wise. I believe that. And I believe part of that is not only because of Greg Byrne, but because of Auburn making the Final Four.
Interesting take. And I think it's really sad. I think as proof of what I'm talking about, in terms of how crazy is it that Fluffopotamus, Cameron Luke Ratliff, he is like a student section of one.
Yeah.
And everybody on Twitter knows him and the girl Lindsay.
Yeah.
They're in Crips of Chaos. We can name our students that care about basketball. There's like 2 of them, and they got about 8 or 10 friends with them all the time.
that is sad.
We can name our basketball fans. We know their names, and it's like the saddest thing ever. It's
like being a globetrotter and having one go-to move. You're like, oh, I've got that 17-foot J. I call it the 17-foot badass J, but I can't do shit else. We need more jumpers. We need some more shit in our arsenal.
That's exactly it. So,
anywhu, thank you, Fluffopotamus and Lindsay. We love you.
Hey, they support the hell out of our basketball team. They love it.
Yeah, and of course Hunter Johnson, I don't know what he does for a living, but he has found a way to make it to every Alabama sporting event from 2002 to right now, and it's pretty amazing. It's that kind of dedication and commitment, and I don't know, mental instability that makes him maybe the Alabama super fan of all times.
If there was such a thing as a professional fan,
that's Hunter.
He's a professional fan.
Did he win the lottery? How does he do this?
Well, first of all, I think for a while, Hunter, I was more impressed that Hunter was making it to all these events when he was working in Texas. But I believe Hunter is now in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham, and it's a lot easier for him to go to these events. I think another way he does it is he's apparently single, or as I'm sure as he would put it, very single. And that allows him to do what the hell he wants to do in other words, he's the boss of his own free time, and he's got plenty of it, when he's not at work. So
his cats disagree that he's single.
They're well fed. They're well taken care of.
Yeah. Sarah Catterson and Kat Murphy, I believe, off his Twitter page.
We know way too much about people we don't know.
Well, no, that's what's funny is, and we're not making fun of them. In fact, I kind of envy. I envy them to a degree. But
I know all these people.
Joking about it, and here we are knowing more shit. And Hunter's probably like, "Hey, I'm not the fucker who knows the name of other people's cats." He's like, "That's you, dickhead."
Yes, exactly. I don't know exactly. You don't know the name of my cat.
Yeah, yeah. Hunter's like, I don't even know if you have a cat, you lonely bastard.
That's exactly right. But yeah, they're all as silly as it sounds. I know I've met Hunter. I know Hunter a little bit, and I've certainly talked to Cameron and Lindsay, on the Twitter,
on the
Twitters, and good folks.
Lawrence, tag them for this podcast so they'll listen and say something good about us one day somewhere to young people.
Oh, they'll never do that.
They'll never do that. Although when I was following Cameron Ratliff after we hired Nate Oates, and I heard Nate's flying. There's that picture of Greg Byrne and Nate Oates on the plane. Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I know who knows about this. And I went to Cameron's Twitter page, and I'm like, he's tracking that plane. If anybody is going to be at that airport when Nate Oates lands, it's going to be that guy. So I went to his. I followed the plane landing and everything, just following Cameron's Twitter page.
Do you think Hunter was strapped to the bottom of the plane like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear underneath the car? You know, like he was going to follow Greg Byrne wherever the hell he went. By the way,
I worried for Cameron that he would do that with Anthony Grant's car on the way out of town.
By the way,
that guy.
People, I told people earlier that there is some lawn maintenance going on at my house right now, so there's a lot of weed eating. And now you think you're hearing a blower outside. That's actually Jimmy's computer cooling itself down. He has a 1987 Tandy 3000.
The Commodore. Yeah, when I heard that the Commodores are playing at the Tuscaloosa Bicentennial, I'm like, who took my laptop?
All right, so football-wise, let's move on. Football-wise. Oh, no, you know what? Tell me who you think is going to win the Final Four first.
Virginia.
I think Auburn's going to win it because I have lost all faith in religion. I have learned, and this has been a very hard lesson for me. I consider myself a Christian. I heard a term today. What was the a friend of my dad's told him he was a secular Buddhist, and he was dead serious. And I was like, shit, that doesn't seem like that even goes together. But apparently you can be a secular Buddhist. That's kind of me. Like I'm a secular Methodist in a sense. Like I'm a Methodist. I just don't go to church. And I mean, I get to say I'm sorry and be forgiven and whatever. But I have learned that if I did go to church more, it's in the Bible somewhere that God is an Auburn fan. No team, no group of people can have this type of luck and these types of blessings bestowed upon them with kick sixes and Hail Marys being completed and 86% free throw shooters missing 2 of 3 and Bruce Pearl just being available because nobody else would touch him with a 10-foot flagpole outside of Denny's, and there he is. It's a perfect marriage, and we can't find a basketball coach. If John Wooden had been a gigolo in Tuscaloosa, we wouldn't be able to find a basketball coach right now until maybe Nate Oates.
That's funny. I don't point to Auburn's success in religious terms. I think they're in the SEC. We're the best athletic conference in the country. They spend a lot of money on sports. They have great facilities. Alabama is a state full of good athletes. They're practically in West Georgia, which is another state filled with great athletes. And I think Auburn's success is what I would call more inevitable than a miracle. And I saw that knowing they have not had more success than us. Yes, this Auburn basketball team has achieved more than Alabama's basketball team ever has by one round, by one game. They've achieved more than we ever had, while noting that Auburn did not win the SEC conference. Auburn did not win the SEC basketball tournament. They just merely advanced one round further than Alabama has in the past. And football-wise, while Auburn has beaten us with some miraculous plays, Auburn has beaten us more than any other program ever has beaten us. But that's a product of playing them every year and them being pretty good every year. And we have a far, 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 far bigger and better football program than Auburn. So I'm not too worried about their catch a lightning in a bottle success. Alabama's had a better basketball program than Auburn over time, and I personally believe that once Bruce Pearl gets Auburn on probation again, or a basketball school hires Bruce Pearl away from Auburn, things will get.
Jimmy, he is rooted into that place. First of all, he's probably too big to move, but he's rooted into that place with blood, sweat, tears, and more sweat. Already, he is so ingrained into that community. I promise you, that fool is going nowhere. Which you can say is fine or whatever, but it means they're going to be good for a while. And there are plenty of fat people jokes, and he sweats a lot jokes and all that shit. And he's sketchy. He is sketchy. But you know who else is sketchy? If you don't think Coach K is sketchy, he might have his own radio program and be a little holier than thou and all that shit. He's pretty damn sketchy. Coach Cal is very sketchy. Roy Williams pretended like, hey, I did not know about this class that just gives A's to everybody, especially basketball players and football players. Are you kidding me? What a great thing for us to have. Oh, it's illegal? Man, I didn't know that. And Bill Self may be fired now because of what he's tied up in. My point is, there are no good people in college basketball. They all got a background.
Nate Oates.
Nate Oates is a good person. Well, and I don't mean to say there are no good people. You can have a sketchy, there can be duality here. I mean, you can have some sketchiness and be a good person. Bruce Pearl's not the scum of the earth that some people say is. He's not. But he's got a past, and that has kept some people kept Tennessee from retaining him, and that's kept other people from hiring him. And Auburn took a chance on him, and meanwhile Alabama decided, let's keep going with this Anthony Grant guy and just see what he's got in the tank. And we found out really quickly he ain't got a lot in the tank. So who looks like the bigger fool now? I say it's us.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see. And one thing about why Bruce Pearl might leave. This is what has to frustrate the hell out of Bruce Pearl is that he just made it to a Final Four. He has beaten Alabama consistently. He slayed Anthony Grant and Avery Johnson, and now is probably chuckling that a guy with 4 years of experience is showing up from Buffalo, and yet he can't even make Trendon Watford's Final Five.
That's true.
And I think if Bruce Pearl leaves Auburn, it's because of that, knowing that. Hey, I can be I've proven myself as a great coach, and I don't want to leave Auburn, but I can't sign kids in my own state simply because the state of Alabama is Alabama, and I can't get a foothold here.
That's true, but he could be on the verge of a national championship while not doing those things, and so why would you leave at a place where you were deified?
Oh, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true. I'm just sure he's, like I said, frustrated with why doesn't Petty play here? Why doesn't Herb Jones play here? Why doesn't Kyra Lewis play here? I mean, because all of these guys are South Alabama.
Wait a minute. Hold up. And God bless him, and I want him on my team. You think he's frustrated Herb Jones in there right now?
Well, I mean, Herb Jones wouldn't be one of their premier players, no doubt, but he'd play minutes there. Sadly, my point would be Herb Jones might be a better player over there.
There's no question he'd be a better player over there because he would have gotten. See, that's the one thing Nate Oates is going to have to do, and that Auburn does. Everybody loves to talk about them shooting the three. They play defense, and we're going to have to start playing some defense, and not just like, oh shit, we got a turnover because somebody dribbled it off their leg. No, we're going to have to make them dribble it off their leg. That's what Auburn does. Auburn just gets in your grill, and we need to do that. But you know what? Let's move past this shit. I don't know how I got on it again. Let's talk about football. You went to somebody. You went to the scrimmage.
I've talked to people.
So how'd it go?
I've talked to people. I mean, I think the media reports are extremely accurate. I mean, in terms of no one should be surprised that our offense is ahead of the defense. I think a lot of times it's the opposite, in early scrimmages, but all of the experience and the depth is on the offense. It's the best quarterback in the nation. It's a first-round running back. It's several first-round wide receivers. It's an offensive line that has as many as 7 or 8 guys who probably deserve to be starters. No one should be surprised that Alabama's offense is ahead of the defense. I think the issues are going to be depth along that front seven. Inside linebacker is going to be a bit of an issue. I'm not convinced that we're putting great players at safety other than X. And I think defensively, I think if we want to worry, if you're the type of fan that likes to worry about those things. If you're the type of fan who's like, oh, we're just going to kick everybody's ass, then focus on offense, because you're right. The offense is going to score 50 a week again. With that group we have, and if you want to worry, well, last year's team scored a lot of points and we still didn't win the national championship. It's primarily because we gave up too many points on defense at the end, and it looks like we might have a defense that might be capable of giving up a bunch of points again when we play somebody really good. So I really think, as boring as this answer is, Luke, and I know this answer is boring, and I hate that it's boring when in fact it should be exciting, but I think we're going to have a team this fall that looks a lot like the team we had last fall.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one guy that's probably making us eat our words. I don't think either you nor I was very high on John Mechie, but apparently that guy can play a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't think a lot of Mechie as a prospect. The national recruiting industry didn't either. He was ranked somewhere in the 300s on the 24/7 composite. Mechie is going to prove to be much better than that. I wouldn't, for all the fans, I mean, I get real frustrated this on Twitter. We're like, oh, I can't wait to see Mechie in the fall. How are you going to see Mechie in the fall? We have Judy and Waddle and Ruggs and Devontae Smith. They're all back. They're going to play all the snaps with the first team this fall. It doesn't matter that Mechie is better than we thought he would be. No, Mechie is going to make his impact in 2020. 2019 is still going to be Judy, Waddle, Ruggs, and Devontae Smith, and they are fantastic football players. We'll see Mechie in the second half of games and in garbage time, and I think Mechie will be exciting down the road. Great hands, smooth athlete. Very excited about that. But Mechie's going to be a 2020 impact guy, not this fall.
Recruiting wise, anything just jump off the page? I know we got
I like that.
Guys here lately.
Yeah, Dericky Wright is who I'm mostly happy about. In-state guy, Etowah County. Love that he's a runner and a hitter and a mean defender. He's a big hitter. He's rangy. He has coverage ability to the point he might be able to get away with playing safety at the next level when in fact he has an outside linebacker's frame. I think Dericky Wright is a great hybrid athlete who's going to be custom built for our nickel and dime packages when we need bigger guys in the back end who can cover. So I really like Dericky Wright. Great eval by the Alabama staff. And I feel like even though where he's ranked right now, he's going to end up ranked much higher after this upcoming camp circuit. And frankly, we shouldn't care where he's going to play at Alabama now. So who cares where he ranks? Because all that matters is he's going to play for Alabama. He's going to be a really good player. So a little less excited about Seth McLaughlin in the sense that, on tape, to me, definitely an SEC athlete, definitely an SEC player, kind of a technician. If I was comparing him to somebody in the last class, I would say he's pretty similar maybe to Tanner Bowles. Who's a good signee for sure. And Tanner Bowles, by the way, is doing pretty good this spring. Although Evan Neal and Darren Belcourt look to be the best of that offensive line group so far. But Seth McLaughlin, a solid. Dericky Wright might be a star.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. If I had to summarize those two, that's kind of how you look at it. And both of them, ironically, were 3 stars, though, right?
I think they're both 3 stars. I'll be surprised if Dericky Wright's not a 4-star, but it's hard to get everybody up and educated about the star system. It's good. It's semi-scientific. It's just not perfect. And I don't know that Dericky Wright will make it up to a 4-star or not. So much of that's built on offers. So much of it's built on how well you do at these national camps. I don't know whether he'll make it or not. I know this, if based on my tape evaluation, and I do so much of that, but based on tape evaluation, he is a slam dunk 4-star. I mean, a slam dunk, because to me, a 4-star is a guy that is one of the top 250 prospects in the country. And he is easily top 250. I would say I would put him in my top 100 before I'd put him out of the top 250.
Oh, wow.
So, and I'm not saying he's top 100 for me. I mean, in a typical year, I think that guy's around 150. But what people don't realize is how good you have to be the 150th prospect.
Yeah.
Well, this is how good you have to be. Let's say everybody in the country signs 20 a year, and the number 1 team signs the top 20 guys, and the number 2 team signs the next 20 guys, and the number 3 team signs the next 20 guys. If you're the 150th best player, then you're signing with the 8th best team in the country.
Yeah.
The 8th best team. What I mean is, if you're in the top 150, you can play for anyone.
Yeah, you're a Central Florida Golden Knight. There's no doubt about it.
That's right, the national champions. The national champs.
The national champ. Do you think, going back to this, CBS has got to be a little pissed, right? I don't really care. I think that they've got 4, as long as they have 4 Power 5 teams in, I'm cool with that. Or a Villanova or something like that. But CBS almost had Kentucky and Duke and Virginia and Gonzaga. That would have been pretty damn compelling, with the potential for a Kentucky Duke national championship. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Yeah, I feel like
Texas Tech, Virginia isn't going to move the meter.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like Fox or Major League Baseball. Let's say the American League Championship Series is the New York Yankees versus the Seattle Mariners. And the National Championship, National League, was the LA Dodgers versus the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
And they're like, we are on the verge of a Yankees-Dodgers World Series, which is New York and LA, historic franchises, huge fan followings.
Now, how about Rockies and Dodgers even? I mean, at least Cincinnati's got some of his Rockies, Mariners World Series.
Yeah, I was just coming, exactly. I was just trying to come up with like the smallest market, smallest fan base as possible. It ends up them instead of Yankees, Dodgers. That's what CBS has to be feeling. At the same time, I'll tell you this. I mean, it's because me and you are, and our listeners, anyone listening to this podcast is a huge sports fan. And we're going to watch, not because it's Auburn, but we're just going to watch no matter who it is, because it's the Final Four, and we're going to watch, or at least watch some of it and be highly interested in the outcome. So it doesn't really matter to us. What it really affects is the quote casual fan. And while I guess CBS needs casual fans for their ratings, I mean, to me, I don't care about casual fans. They don't put the emotional investment that the rest of us put in it, so I don't care what they want. But I know that they're important to the TV people.
All right. Any other things you want to throw out there since we've gone?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, we got another week of spring practice here, and spring practice will start by the time we do a podcast next week, which will kind of be an 8-day preview. Spring practice will be winding down. And I think what we should talk about next week is what did we learn about our football team this spring that we didn't know before spring started.
I like it.
All right.
Well, roll tide, everybody. And Jimmy, no phone calls for you. I guess that's bad.
Go Virginia. Well, the phone was ringing like crazy. I think they got the drift that I was doing the radio thing here. So the phone was going nuts.
I got them ringing off the wall, people. You sound like a stockbroker that calls me. It's like, I got all these other calls, Luke, but you're my number one guy. Do you want to?
Yeah. I'm a lawyer. What's the difference? No difference.
You're both selling dreams.
That's right.
I found out a lawyer friend of mine put y'all's profession at best. He said all he does now is manage expectations.
Highly accurate.
Yeah. All right, man. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Go Virginia.
See you, buddy.
Roll Tide. Bye.